Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Constructive Behaviors podcast. I have a question for you. Who out there feels stuck, unsure of your next move, frustrated that your career isn't moving forward, it's not moving in the direction you want, or maybe it's just not moving fast enough? Who feels stuck? And what can you do about it? Well, today, my guest, DeIla and I are hoping that this episode and her story are not only going to resonate with you and remind you that you aren't alone. We've all felt stuck, but we also want you to see what's possible. I mentioned in last week's podcast that in midsummer this year, 2024, I will be opening my first ever Women in Construction cohort, Getting Unstuck. But I haven't yet told you what that means. So I'm hoping today is a bit of a teaser. I want DeIla's story to give you a better understanding of what getting unstuck looks like and feels like. In her words, if she could tell herself a decade ago one thing, she would say, "Get ready, Dee. Your entire world is going to shift. You are going to be unstoppable." I love that, DeIla. I absolutely love that phrase. And I'm so glad you're on the show. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Barb. I'm so excited to be here with you and talk all things construction and just dive into it today.
Well, let's start with how we met. So we were at a conference in Branson a few months ago, and there was a tradeswomen panel. And I've been in NAWIC for a long time. It was a NAWIC conference, and when I joined NAWIC, I was still a tradeswoman. I was in the Carpenters Union at the time, and I struggled to feel like I fit in. And I think that is something that our organization has struggled with a little, but we have now formed a tradeswomen committee, bringing more tradeswomen in. And complete honesty, the panel that you, Rebecca, and Dana put on at that conference was the best part of the entire conference. You guys were phenomenal. How did that come about?
The exact thing as you said, the building of women that are tradeswomen within the NAWIC organization has been happening. It's perhaps not as quickly paced as we'd want to see, especially being a tradeswoman ourselves. But any opportunity that I have, and I'm sure you can echo this, any opportunity that I have to get in front of a crowd, in front of a classroom, in front of any kind of grouping of people, and help kind of open their eyes to what it's like for a woman to work in industry, and the experiences that we face and how grouping together and coming together, because we are out there, we just don't really realize it, the mass amounts that there are, and it continues to grow. So coming together and talking on these platforms, gives us that recognition where other women can say, oh my gosh, we are here. And so that's kind of how it came about. It was a get on stage, let's talk about tradeswomen. Rebecca kind of spearheaded it and helped us, negotiate and kind of put together the questions that we wanted to present. And we wanted to make sure that they were ones that would be interesting for the crowd, ones that would be informative and really relate to our personal experiences, because we all kind of have a little bit of a different part of experience within the sectors of industry. And so
Yeah.
with that variety, it helped bring a good spread of things to the stage. And that's exactly what I hope to always continue to do. Just the same as you, we have that real construction experience. I love seeing that on your website. And I think that's like exactly the notion. This is real construction experience. I've been there, I've done it, and let's talk about it. Let's get narratives out there and biases off the page.
Let's talk about what you actually do. What trade are you in, and how did you even get in it? Because we've been dancing around tradeswomen, but I haven't told everybody what you do.
Yeah, so I am a pipe welder by trade. I started in the industry, in the office actually. So I had no intent on this being a career choice for me. It was kind of like a holdover until I started back into classes. I was going in for psychology and was almost finished with my bachelor's degree in psychology, which I was working towards being an occupational therapist at the time. And so a huge shift. My husband's company was hiring. They said, hey, guys, you got any of your wives on the road? Are they interested in working in the office? We need some help. And so I had like a 3-month hiatus until classes were starting, and they were like, we'll pay you good money. So I was like, why not? So I started in the middle of North Dakota in the wintertime at a compressor station in Alexander, North Dakota. And it was a whirlwind. I went from in the office doing like OSHA 10 certification for new hires to the weld log office, which was my first experience with anything welding. And I was inputting the data like re-weld, the rework of welds that were being put in and completed. And so I had no clue what that even, I understood, partially what it meant, but I didn't see it yet. And one day they were like, hey, DeIla, we need somebody out in the field for a fire watch over in this location. Are you interested in doing that? And I was like, sure. So I put on a vest, went out there, and that's when I seen welding for the first time in person. And I was immediately attracted to it. And one of the guys was like, you want to try this? And gave me a scrap piece of pipe, gave me his welding hood and a stinger, and I burnt an electrode down. And he was like, you've done this before. And it's like, no. And I've never even seen it until today. And he was like, this is something you like, you'll be all right with it. And from there, it became that unstoppable, that thirst of knowledge, that thirst of how can I get more? And I went from being a fire watch to a helper or laborer, and just was practicing at any point I could, whether that was on breaks at work, on days off with people that had welding machines that were willing to give me their time and knowledge any way I could. And I eventually took a structural test and passed and earned my AWS D11 certifications. And then from there, I knew pipe welding was what I wanted to do. It was the most attractive thing to welding for me. It was an elite part of welding, and I wanted to be a part of it. I didn't see many like me there, so I was like, that's it. And I kept learning, kept providing time and just as much effort as I could, and earned my ASME if I can talk, code vessel pressure certifications and Section 9. So TIG welding and stick welding have been my jam for years. And my husband and I traveled and did that for just about a decade. And now I'm a welding instructor, getting ready to start my 3rd year. So it was kind of like, I didn't know my path until I've been on it. You don't know your story until you kind of can look back. And it's wild to see that entry into a field that I had no experience in, immediately fell in love with it, and then decided how fast can I go? How far can I go with this? And that's exactly it. It became a challenge of, what else can I do? Not that I'm not satisfied, but I'm still doing the exact same thing, even in the role that I'm in now. Next up is my certified welding educator and certified welding inspector certifications. And so no matter what I'm doing, I'm constantly looking for ways to excel. And that's, I think, what's helped me be so successful in this industry, where there's not a lot of women that I've seen along my way that, I wanted to pave that way to where perhaps others can see it and not feel alone. And now that I've done it, I'm like, anybody can do it. You just have to try. That's what it comes down
Yeah.
to.
So that was a lot of information very fast, and you threw out a bunch of terms that many of the listeners may not understand. So let's back up a little. So questions. I'm gonna hit you with some just quick questions. So how long do you think you were working in the office before someone asked you to go do Firewatch?
So about maybe 2 months, 3 months.
So I think that in itself is interesting, right? Like that this is you are supporting all of these workers who are out there doing it, yet you really didn't even know what it was that they were doing. You're filling out these reports. And I think that happens to a lot of women in the industry where we're happy. Women are happy doing what we were hired to do. We don't really think, oh, there's something else to go look at. And then somebody brings the woman into the actual doing it space, and they're like, what? What is
Mm.
this? Like, this is amazing. And I think that I think that's something that organizations can do is just expose your office employees to what your company actually does. I think companies and organizations would be very surprised at how many women are actually taken to what is going on out there and wanting to learn more and maybe wanting to do that. And I mean, I'm gonna say this, and I think I'm right, but you make companies make more money off of the people in the field than they make off of the people in the office, right? So if you can motivate someone who's working in the field, they want to do something in the office, like that's benefiting your company. Just start introducing them to them, let them see it. So my second question is Firewatch. So help the listeners who don't know understand what is Firewatch. So what were you actually doing and why?
It is the craziest, most important, but boring job I've ever had. I was told to sit on that bucket in the corner, don't move. You're watching people work. Oh my gosh, that was torture. It was great because it was the first time that I got my eyes on things and could see the work being done. So I was just, I'm on it. I'm looking around. I'm watching everyone. And so usually as a fire watch, you cover about a 20 to 25-foot radius area. You are watching the people doing spark producing work, whether that be with tools and equipment or welding, and you're just making sure that everybody's safe, that they're not catching fire and that things around them aren't catching fire. I wasn't good at it. I was terrible at it, Barb. It was not meant for me. I couldn't sit there. I would be so enamored with the welding going on over here that the people cutting over here their shirts would catch fire. Like I wasn't there for it because I'm watching the welding or I'm looking over here. And so Firewatch, it is a great, I think they hired me in at $18 an hour and $125 a day per diem. And they're paying out 10 days. They're doing a 10-day sub just for working the 7 days. So you got 10 days of per diem for showing up for the 7 days. So we were working 7 days a week, 10, 12 hours a day. And it was terrible. It was great because I got to see everything that was on the job site and, really actually put on some work boots for the first time and be in the field. But it was not what I wanted to do. And my husband was like, "You like this, don't you?" Because he was a fabricator, journeyman pipe fitter on the job. And I was like, "I do." I was like, "This is wild." I was like, "The welding is just so awesome." He's like, "Well, I'm the tape measure guy and do all that. So if this is something you like, that's the side you'd be going on if you're interested." And I'm like, "That's exactly where I'm interested." And, here I am, Barb. It's just one foot in front of the next. And it was a great journey. And here I go, continuing down it.
Well, and I just grabbed my calculator to do a little bit of math here. Um, so thinking about $18 an hour to start out and say that's a 40-hour week, which usually if you're on the road, you're getting way more than 40 hours, which means you're getting time and a half. So 18 plus 9. I don't do math in my head. I'm embarrassed at the moment, but that's 27, I believe. Um, I mean, it's really good money, and that's the starting block. Something you said though that was funny to me is how you were awful at Firewatch. I was having a random conversation with someone the other day about how a lot of times, and I'm hoping that this isn't as true today as it used to be, but if someone thought about a woman in construction, they thought, oh, she's the person holding the stop sign out on the road. And my comment to that, it was just a conversation. It wasn't that what that person thought, but it has been a misnomer. And when the person said that, I said, I gotta tell you that I think women would be awful at being a flagger. We're paying attention to so many things at one time. We can't just be okay standing in one place, turning a sign. We're gonna be like, oh wait, he's getting close to that ditch, or oh wait, she doesn't have this say PPE on her. Oh wait, if they did it this way, they like we would make awful flaggers. So I love that you said you made an awful fire watch because I was having a very similar thought process earlier this week. Okay, so on your first fire watch, they let you try a little of the welding. You use some terms, TIG welding, I think you said MIG welding. Help help us understand like what is well maybe we should start with, just in case somebody doesn't know, welding is like putting two pieces of metal together. If you put two pieces of wood together, right? We know we're going to use nails, we're going to use screws, we're going to use glue maybe. But when you're putting two pieces of pipe together, you have to weld them together. And so that is the dumbed down version of what you make a lot of money doing, right? But help them understand that the difference of the welding that you were talking about.
Sure. So when I first started, it was with stick welding, which is SMAW, shielded metal arc welding. And its application is what we call holding a stinger or electrode. It's got a lot of little slang terms. And coming out of it is a rod, which is called an electrode, and you burn that down. So that is what stick welding, SMAW, it's all the same thing there. And then the other certification that I've had was with TIG welding, and that's GTAW, which stands for gas tungsten arc welding. TIG is kind of like the slang term for it. And so with that one, it's more of there's duality happening here. So I have a torch in this hand that has what's called a tungsten, which is the electrode for TIG welding, protruding out of it. And I'm either oscillating it, we call it walking the cup, or I'm freehanding it. And then I'm using my other hand as the filler rod hand. So I'm using that hand to fill in and push the metal into the puddle. And so that's what my certifications have been in, both the SMAW and GTAW, which are the stick and TIG welding. Only until about 2019 was when I first experienced MIG welding. And I did that once I started getting into more of the metal art side of things. And with MIG welding, it's more of like that gun where the wire is being fed out of it, and that's what you use to weld. So all very similar applications. You're performing pretty similar things here and getting a puddle with it, just slightly different ways, and different consumables are being used for it. But they're all a really cool process, and there's several little changes that we can do, like with MIG welding. There's also flux core, which is kind of similar, just change up of gases or non-gases that are being used. But whenever it comes down to it, if I had a preference, it would be TIG welding, which is the gas tungsten arc welding. It is an art. It is beautiful. It's so fun to do. I even catch myself. I love some good music playing. And when I say good music, my good music is like the early 80s or late 80s, early 90s hip hop. I love like Tupac and Biggie and all of them. I don't know. I like to thank my brother for that growing up, my older brother. But so, good TIG welding to me is having that music jamming, and I can even kind of just get a little sway to myself whenever I'm going. You find that flow and that fit. And I've really learned, and I tell my students this all the time, once you get comfortable and you're not like white knuckling either your torch or your stinger, and you can just get loose to it and just flow with it, you always perform a better weld. Don't be tense, don't be tight, and just holding on strong with it, loosen up, feel the flow with it, have fun, enjoy what you're doing, and you always perform a better weld.
And you mentioned a couple times metal art, and something we haven't talked about yet is the company that you and your husband have, that you do metal art, you do custom fabrications. What is, well, and you do more than metal, you do many materials that you do custom fabrications. What's one of the most awesome projects that you guys were able to do?
Oh, that is hands down the 9/11 Memorial Project that Jack and I were able to have a part in. So
Wow.
I met some friends via Instagram years ago, and just staying in contact, being in industry together, kind of native to the Missouri area. They had reached out and said, "Hey, we have an idea. Uh, are you and your husband interested in joining in on this project?" And it was actually right around the time that Jack and I stopped traveling and LLC'd and came back to Missouri. So we were already local again. I was actually outside of Kansas City in Pleasant Valley, Missouri. and it was for the Pleasant Valley Fire Department. So years ago, they petitioned to the Port Authority in New Jersey for a pallet of debris from Ground Zero, and they shipped them this pallet, and they had their pallet in the storage of the fire station for a couple of years until somebody came along with an idea, and that idea sparked interest. I have a photo. I wonder if Dang, that would have been a great photo to share and show you. It's of Jack holding the drawing of the prints that he drew out for it. And that was when I learned to MIG weld for the first time. And we kind of did a replica of the trade towers in honor of what once stood, and used a lot of different symbolisms to kind of pull together. So it sat on a concrete pad that was in the shape of the Pentagon. We had badges around each side of the actual structure commemorating the lives lost, whether civilian, firefighters, EMTs. And then we had benches around the Pentagon structure. We had Boy Scouts come in and do the yard work for us and the grounds beautification. So many companies donated materials, tools, welding machines, welding hoods. Like, it was an awesome experience. It was my husband and a group of women that got together with an idea and created something that's going to stand forever now. And so it took about 2 years to complete the build. We did it all
Wow.
in our spare time. We all live roughly 3 hours apart. We live the furthest from them all. So we made it up as often as we could. And those people became family. We would stay the night with them when we'd go up there. We'd bring our dogs, and just enjoy our time and doing something. And truthfully, Barb, I don't believe I realized at that time how impactful that build was going to be, because during the 11-year anniversary of 9/11 was when we were able to, welcome everybody to the working feature of it. So it had a working water feature, a lot of things to commemorate what was once there and what's there now. And so the debris that we were able to have for the project, where the towers stand, the debris is inside of it. So you can see through the towers. It's kind of to resemble a silhouette of once was there. And then actual debris from the towers are inside of it. And it's twisted and mangled and bent. And it's got
Wow.
such a cool experience to me now with being a part of that build, not realizing what it was going to mean in the future. And then now the local fire departments and many throughout the Kansas City area use that as a place where they go for the memorial for 9/11 each year. And so it's something much bigger now than I ever imagined, but that's what MIG welding did for me. And I never did MIG welding before. I never considered being a welder, and look at all these amazing things that I've been able to be a part of. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's been awesome.
Okay, so I am going to ask you to send me the address of that, because that's 20 minutes from Pleasant Valley is 20 minutes from my house. So I am, and one of my really great girlfriends and a mentee of mine, she just bought her first house in Pleasant Valley. So we are going to go visit. We are going to go visit and get some pictures, and we'll post those along with this episode when it comes out. So I cannot wait to see it. You're going to have to send me that.
I love that.
Okay. And I'm also going to want to know who in Kansas City you worked with. So send that in the email too, and I'll see
Yep.
if I happen to know any of them. But you said it was a group of women and your husband. Let's talk about women in the industry, women in welding. Do you have an idea of what percent of welders are women?
The last number I saw was 6.1%. And I I don't think that's accurate from what I've seen. Maybe when I started 10 years ago, that was more accurate. But with what I've seen, and then now being an educator, I can see that number growing. It's the question of, now that we're recruiting these women, are they actually staying in the industry, from my perspective now? But it's I think something that is not accurately reflected right now. I believe there to be more from my experiences, but it is a lower number.
Well, and I also wonder if your experiences aren't um oh, I don't want to use the word influenced, if your experiences aren't influenced because of who you are. Because those of us, women in construction who are actively working to bring more women in, we are actively seeing more women, right? Um, for two reasons, I think. One, because we are working at it, we are helping women to see what the industry has to offer, and we are doing what we can to make introductions and to bring them in. But two, it's also kind of like if you decide you're going to buy a red Jeep, all of a sudden now all you see are red Jeeps, right? Like, so
Yep.
there's a little bit of that. And let's say, I mean, for you and being an instructor where you are, you have created a community in which the young girls in your community see, oh, there's a path for me, right? So you are naturally attracting, even if you weren't actively doing it, you are naturally attracting because of being that role model. And I just think there's so much to that. And you may go to somewhere in California where, I don't know, I'm just picking a state, but they don't have a female instructor, And so it's, they probably aren't seeing as many women come in as you are because women aren't, they just don't think it's for them. Um, talk to us about your students. So you've been an instructor now for 3 years at the Career Center, and how how has the involvement or the enrollment from female students changed from the time you got there till now, and what do you see for the future?
Oh, yeah, great question. So I'm at the Davis H. Hart Career Center in Mexico, Missouri, and I'm getting ready to go into my third year. So when I started my first year, there were three ladies in the program, I believe it was. And then last year, we had four ladies in the program, and this coming year, we have six enrolled in the program. So each year so far, there has been a climb up in numbers. I don't ever perhaps see it being all ladies. That would be a dream come true. But I know that's not likely. This is a small rural Missouri community. So welding is a hit. Like a lot of interest is in welding. And so the program has done nothing but grow and grow and grow. Hence why the Career Center hired me as a secondary welding instructor with the program. The other instructor has been here for he just finished his 33rd year. He's been an incredible mentor to have, an ally in the industry. His connections and outreach in the community and through the country is incredible. We're actually, the both of us are going Monday. We're leaving for Troy, Ohio to the Hobart Institute of Welding Technology for the Welding Educators Conference. And I have the pleasure of being a guest speaker at the conference where I will be discussing the recruitment and retention of women in industry and my experiences, as you know, Barb, because I'm also going to be highlighting you and the work that you have done to continue that same process for us. And that's exactly what it is. It needs to be that growth. So I love the mentality of if they can see her, they can be her. And I believe that's what I'm doing here. So they can see me, so they know that it's possible. And
Yeah.
I love the tours that our program puts on. We access 9 different schools in the district. And so they bring groups in, and there's always ladies in the group. And I make it a point to directly look at them and talk to them and say, are you interested in welding? Because you can do this too. And I like to make sure that I mentioned, most of the time as a working member of your community, you need to have a job. And so when you get older, we all are going to be working. Why not do something that you don't even realize you probably are going to love, but you're also going
Yeah.
to make some damn good money at? And so if that's the scenario, why not choose something like welding or the building trades or HVAC or an electrician, something where you are doing work with your hands, you're showing, build and growth and development right then and there. You're being a part of the things around you. It's
Yeah.
prideful and you make good money.
Yeah, I think they're in general, I think kids they don't know what they want to do when they leave high school, and I think that's okay. I think, man, 18 is really young to know what you're going to do for the rest of your life, but I don't think we're doing a good enough job educating them on the opportunities that are out there. And I think many kids myself included, I left college and was like, okay, I'll do business administration because I didn't know what to do, right? Um, how how do you feel in your community you guys are doing? One, do you feel you're doing better? And if so, how are you doing better to get these opportunities in front of kids at a younger age? And what are your recommendations for others?
Yes, so things that I've been doing and that I'm continuing to do, even in schools and that are outside of our district, I know from just being a small town person, I know a lot of people through smaller communities throughout the area. And so I've been invited even to those schools during their career days to talk about what I've done and being a woman in industry. And so it's that simple outreach, that using connections within your communities to get your voice out there, to get your presence out there, to share your experiences, because it becomes that whodunit story, if you will. And if I've done it, then that means it can be done. So you can do it too. And, what I'm continuing to do for that same notion is find other avenues that I can continue to embed myself into to do those things. So it's not just in schools if I dare. My husband and I have a business, Alpha Duo LLC. And so I've done tutoring, personal tutoring through that I had a 13-year-old and a 66-year-old woman. So I've had a variety of age range. It's not just necessarily for the youth. It's hard to know what you're going to do right out of school. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know about welding. So it's that exact notion. It doesn't matter what the age is. Let's talk about welding if you have questions. Get into the trades. Don't be afraid to do it. Your gender will not stop you from doing that. Your mind will. If you're thinking that you can't do it, you're probably going to struggle. But why not go into it with the mentality of, this is what I want to do, so damn it, do it.
Love that you said age doesn't matter because I think about women who, I don't know, maybe late 30s, early 40s who were married and they had kids and they made the decision that they were going to stay home with their kids for whatever reason, and great for them to make that decision to do so. But if and when they get divorced and they're like, what do I do now? I've been out of the workforce for so many years. What now? And I think that was part of Abby's story. When I interviewed Abby, we were talking about Abby Radaba earlier before we started recording. I think that was part of her story. Like, what now? Like, I've been out of the industry, out of the workforce for so long. You can try something completely new. And there's such an artistic element to what we do as tradespeople. And I will say, I never considered myself artistic. I would have been like, if somebody said, "Oh, this is artistic," I'd be like, "Yeah, that's not for me." But as I learned the trade, I'm like, man, the creativity started to come out that I didn't even realize was there. And I just think you can, at any age, you can step in and say, "I'd like to try this." If it's not for you, then it's not for you. But try it, right? Don't be afraid to find another woman out there and say, hey, how could I go about trying this? It's age doesn't matter. I love that. Okay, so we talked about recruitment a little. Let's talk about the retention aspect as we kind of wrap up, because I know you're really passionate about both of those things as I am. We can work our asses off to get women in and get them trained and get them going, but we are struggling to keep them in. Um, what can we do as an industry, men and women, all genders listening? What can we do to really help the retention?
That is a loaded question, isn't it? So
It
with
really is.
it is, because there's so many different dynamics that you can come at with this, so many different perspectives or avenues that you can look at. So the financial stability is, I think, the biggest thing that people need to realize, that a blue collar job is very profitable, very successful, and people have such a stigma to it that the dirty work doesn't pay well. Financial stability is here. The work will always be here. So not only the financial stability, but just the ability to get a job. You will always be afforded those opportunities if you're willing to work. So I think that that is something that is very attractive to this industry for anyone. If you want work, and you're willing to do the work, you're going to have it and you're going to get paid pretty dang good. And then that goes into the benefits with it. You know, being in the traveling side of the industry, I didn't really have the benefits starting out because I worked for 9 different companies the first year I was on the road. You know, you go from company to company to company where the job is, where the work is, where the money is. And so I didn't really have the benefits at first. Once we found a company that was a good fit at the time, we really embedded ourselves into them and had awesome insurance and benefits. And so that's something that is equally as attractive are the benefits, the insurance. So just talking job wise, those are 2 or 3 of the really big things that you will never worry about when it comes to this kind of work in this industry. You'll have the work, you'll have the money, you'll have the benefits. And then another thing, so I love using community outreach things like social media and stuff and talking with women in the trades. And I reached out and had asked a question, you know, what is keeping you? What has kept you? Why? Why are you staying? And you wouldn't believe the number of years of experience that I got back in responses from these women. I'm talking 20, 30 years plus from so many. So they're out there. There have been women in this industry for decades. And when I'm talking that industry, several of them were in the electrician side. And so we're here, we're already doing the work, but I don't know if a lot of times we know each other are here. So thankfully with social media and things like that, we're able to kind of reach out and find one another. And so those women have told me that sisterhood or brotherhood through the union, when they're unionized or non-unionized, the grouping of their community that they find have been very helpful for them to stay in industry. So having our allies, having our mentors, having our people that we can rely on are game changers. And that's what will keep somebody in industry. Don't let them be a loner. If you're working with someone, you need to accept them as your coworker or employee or whomever it may be and treat them as such. Let them know that who they are is important, that their ideas are important, that what they can do is important, especially if they're showing up and doing good work. Why not thank that and encourage that to continue? If it's just and on with your job every day, nobody's going to feel welcomed in that. I can't tell you how many times I've shown up on a job site and other crews, you know, the competing crews, whether it be the HVAC guys or the pipe or the civil, they're very crewed up. They don't all the time really, you know, collaborate or communicate or like each other, it seemed like. And I always found that crazy to me. I think of it more of a community. We're here doing the same job with the same, you know, desired outcome. So we're away from our homes, we're away from our families. Why don't we get along? And so it seemed like every time we'd go onto a job site, and especially if I traveled with the same company to another location, and say the clients at the job site were kind of sticklers or, you know, maybe grumpy or whatever it may be, give me a day. I'm not brown nosing. I'm not doing anything like that. I'm going to be a human. I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to see how your day's going. And all of a sudden the crews are getting along, the different crews within the job site, and it's like a pleasant place to be. And so if others have that same mentality, male or female, on a job site, it makes it more inviting. You become more of a team, and a team is always more successful. And so I think that within the dynamics of retaining the women in industry, it really comes down to our people person skills, aside from the business work, you know, aside from the financial stability and the benefits. What it really comes down to is accepting the person as they are and the work that they do, not because of who they are. It doesn't matter my gender. When I put my hood on, watch out. Like, I'm going to lay a dang good weld. Barb, you're not even going to believe this experience I had yesterday. And it goes great with what we're talking about. Yesterday, it was the day before, actually. I was in Walmart and I had on my NAWIC shirt. And a gentleman like was in the aisle with me, and he kind of leans and goes, "Well, what do you do?" And looked at my shirt. And I said, "Well, this is the National Association of Women in Construction. I am currently the vice president of my chapter, getting ready to become the president." I was like, "And we have a golf tournament this weekend." I was like, "So I'm wearing my shirt." And he's like, "So what do you do with them?" And I was like, "Well, this is an association that I'm a part of. I'm actually a pipe welder by trade, but I'm a welding instructor here in town." Do you know what his response was to me?
Tell me.
Unbelievable.
In a
Unbelievable.
in a good way, right? Your facial
No.
expression is no? Oh, okay.
She could
Yeah.
not believe it. And I said multiple times, unbelievable, said, women don't do that. What do you mean? That's a man's job. And I said, I beg to differ, sir. I guarantee you I probably weld better than most of the men you know, if you even know a welder. And so I was like, let's go. Let me tell you about women in industry. And so it is simply that, whether on a job site, in Walmart, I don't care where you are, be a person and don't tell me that I can't do my job. Be a good person and accept me for face value. Even though I have
Yeah.
hair and I'm a girl, that doesn't mean that I can't be a welder. And so it's always an interesting encounter when something like that happens. But
It
that's where
is.
I'm here to challenge that status quo and say, buckle up, because I'm going to tell you how women can do it. And then I'll show you how. And then I'm going to take you along for the ride and you're going to do it
Yeah.
next. Yeah.
Well, I love and hate that story, right? Like that is the typical story when we tell someone this is what we do. When I've said I'm a job site superintendent, you get the like what like because someone's out and you're playing it, or like what do you really do, right? And I told this story when I was on stage in Branson, and I don't know if you heard it or not, but at that conference in Branson, I was in an elevator, and this is the first time in my career, in my entire life, this has ever happened to me, and I will never forget it. I was on the elevator, three men stepped on, and you could tell there was another conference going on at the hotel. And it also seemed like it was kind of construction related. And so I said, "What are you guys here for?" And they said, "Oh, we're here for a drillers conference." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm here for a women in construction conference." And one of the guys, and these were all guys at least my age and older, and one of them looks at me and says, "Are you a superintendent?" He was dead serious. I've never had anyone guess what I was or what I did. Granted, I haven't been that for over 5 years, but oh my God, it was like them. And I just said, "Yeah, actually, I built buildings, for hospitals and schools mostly." And the doors open, I step off onto my floor, and I am just like, I can't believe that just happened. And as I'm walking down the floor, down the hallway, I hear one of them say to the other as the doors are closing, "That's really cool." Excuse me. They said, "That's really cool." And I was like, that's never happened to me before. Like, it was an amazing feeling because we do usually get well, like, do you really do that? Okay, I know we're running out of time, so I want to wrap up with my last and favorite question. DeIla, what is one constructive behavior that you would recommend for people to improve their career or for the industry to do to improve the industry?
Well, I suppose I'll start. I shared this with you earlier. I really appreciate this quote, and I think it can go really well with what I'll say about that. The quote is, "If it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you," by Fred DeVito, I believe. And I love that quote because it basically sets you up for the mindset of being fearless. You have to go into things being fearless, because if you have that fear, of course, it's going to hold you back. Take that fear out of the equation, because here's the thing, it's not like it's impossible, right? It's not
Yeah,
an impossible feat.
that's
So
right.
if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. You need to be fearless. Dive in. If it's something you want to do, we only have one life, you all. There's only one life to live. It's do
That's
it
right.
now or don't do it at all.
That's right.
So be fearless. Be fearless.
That's absolutely right. Don't let fear be the thing that keeps you stuck. you want to move forward. I mean, what you've been able to do in the last 10 years is amazing. And I am so excited that you were on this podcast. I can't wait to get to know you even more. But thank you for being on the show, and we will definitely be in touch.
Thank you so much, Barb. It was a pleasure.